Painter Richard Hamilton was the founding father of pop art in Britain. In all his work over the last 3 decades, he's used images taken from the press and television, turning them into icons for their own time. In 1956, he made this collage. Just what is it that makes today's home so different, so appealing? He started by drawing up a list of all the ingredients of modern consumer life: cinema, food, television, comics, and then finding images in British and American magazines to build them into a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Everyman at home.
I'm a figurative artist, and that means that I need subject matter, human subject matter, and sometimes human subject matter of a very powerful nature, something that really touches the emotions, touches the heart, whether it makes a value judgment or not. It should touch and move its audience. And so I find that I turn naturally to the mass media for that subject matter, for that inspiration, because it doesn't happen outside. You can't find it anywhere else but in the pages of newspapers and the television screen and cinema and so on.
In 1967, Mick Jagger and gallery owner Robert Fraser were arrested for using marijuana. Hamilton's outrage at the arrests led him to use the press cuttings to make a print. He called it Swinging London. And a press photo of the 2 accused men resulted in a series of prints. A negative from the Bing Crosby film Holiday Inn led Hamilton to work on a series of pictures that explored the nature of negative and positive colour. This one he called I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas. The other, in positive, has the title I'm Dreaming of a Black Christmas.
I use photography, but when I use photography, it's the beginning of something. It's a means of assembling imagery, of sketching, of making thoughts. But ultimately, it has to be translated into the age-old medium of oil paint.
Newspaper photographs and television footage of the blanket protest in Northern Ireland led Hamilton to work on a life-size oil painting. It now hangs in the Tate Gallery, London, the portrait of a detainee. Together with its companion painting, Hamilton called it The Citizen.
I was once prompted by a question to say that it wasn't my image, it was their image of themselves. It was these people in prison who saw this almost as a way of presenting themselves to the public, the wider public, and they enjoyed the opportunity of having TV cameras going into their cells to see them in this condition. And that was why they were doing it, to present themselves to a public, to make it aware. To make the public aware of their condition and the way they felt and what they were doing. It's all to do with the prolongation and the creation of myths. It's the creation of an icon. What we have to do is to make an image which corresponds to the citizen painting, which was achieved rather laboriously using old-fashioned techniques of enlargers and photographic prints and collaging. And suddenly we have the possibility of taking a whole lot of images and extracting bits and pieces and putting them together electronically and removing seams and painting and elaborating the image. And it can obviously be done in a fraction of the time that it would take using the older techniques. Now we're looking for the Protestant image of himself, which is this equally bizarre dressed-up character, his bowler hat and umbrella and orange sash. And what I find interesting about it is that they're all concerned about image-making and presenting themselves in a certain guise. It's establishing the identity of their culture. What I would like to end up with is an image which is comparable with the blanket man, which I call the citizen. And it should be the same size, have the same feel, be a companion piece in every sense. So how do we go about getting these things together? This was my first encounter with the Paintbox, and I had in my mind the possibility of some quite complex and sophisticated demands that I was going to make. Obviously, there wasn't any opportunity for me to learn, so I had to rely upon the expertise of Martin Holmbrook. The first thing that we needed was to get a figure, and a figure which would relate in scale and feel to the figure that I'd already painted, called the citizen. It was a question of taking the top half of one figure and the lower half from another. That's the first.
That's the first.
Where's the second? Go back again.
Well, I can.
It's possible to put things into a library so that we can refer back to them and pull them up in any sequence that we want to work on. Usually, it's a matter, in my case, of making masks, cutting things out, fitting, reversing. So I would be using, in my head anyway, the kind of ideas that I would be working on in my own darkroom in my studio at home.
Right, we've got him now then. What we can now do, let's just whether we won't be able to struck picture. If we go back to the title again.
Since I was trying to make something comparable with the citizen, I was always a bit worried about the fact that most of the material that we had was taken in the street. So all the muddle behind had to be kind of ironed out and substituted with something more in keeping with the citizen. These orange men march through the streets in the marching season, and they usually carry umbrellas. In recent times, these umbrellas have begun to be used as offensive weapons. I think the umbrella is a substitute for the King Billy sword that was found on one of the figures, and which we decided to put onto our figure. Cut and paste is something that you're very familiar with in the word processing language and terminology. To be able to take out a sentence and put it somewhere else is something that is being done every minute of the day in offices. It's rather more remarkable when you see the cut and paste facility being applied to a visual problem.
So we've now got this texture which we can start to bring in that window we've just made. Quite nice, actually.
I just feel that it needs, the perspective is too strong on the buildings behind for this, that we need to have something a bit flatter. But the bottom is pretty good now. I think they need a building. The ease with which this part of the image making is done is incredible for an artist, to be able to duplicate something and move it over and cut it out and tidy it up, is done with such speed and accuracy that I begin to feel I must have one in my studio to do the kinds of things that I now spend a great deal of time doing with normal photographic means. I think a lot of the difficulty with the background was to calm it down. The figure has to be locked into its space in a way that the street didn't permit. Because of the agitated perspective, it was all too dynamic. And somehow we were able to arrest the figure by the context in which it was put.
Leaving plenty of granite.
There was one stage when I began to think that there should be a kind of echo from the citizen painting over in the new painting. And it occurred to me that maybe the cell could be regarded as an interior painting and the new painting could be considered as an exterior scene. So I began to think about the possibility of taking the window from the citizen and transfer it over onto the, I keep calling it the new painting, but what we're dealing with is just an image on a television screen at the moment.
Oh, okay. No, that's absolutely fine. I mean, in fact, no, we wanted that reversed. It doesn't matter. So in theory, this comes in this sort of area.
No, suppose you reduce it quite a lot. That little bit of echo of the texture.
It's quite nice, isn't it? It just cuts up that sort of
and then
patch.
you can spray you plop that in.
Right. So let's take the central colour of the window though, which is a pale bluey colour, because we can bring that up to that.
Yes.
The difficulty about working with another artist like Martin Holmbrook, who is doing a good deal of the work on the screen to my requests and specifications, is that the hand of another artist is always something that is going to introduce a kind of a anomaly. The right-hand shoulder of the figure was worrying me because there was an alien mark, an alien hand appearing. So it seemed necessary to remove that alien presence. Alien only in the sense that it was evident, not alien in the sense that it was there.
So the things that are irritating me about this at the moment is that your hand is coming in there.
Well, look, I can.
And that's don't take it away. It's good. I think it's good, but it's the fact that it isn't coinciding with the expanded metal mesh.
What I can do with this look is
Put that over.
So once again.
So the solution was to find a piece of the same textural quality and simply insert it in another form to get rid of the mark.
We can do something like that, which immediately makes it your image.
that edge is
What do you want it?
uncomfortable. It needs to be cleaned up a bit.
Okay.
And it needs to be brought back to some resemblance of a window ledge rather than as a...
I mean,
so
we
if
don't
you
want to
could
get...
straighten up the brown.
I can straighten... I mean, if you'd... Yeah, well, why don't we do that? I
Just
mean, if I
straighten
use
it.
the old airbrush again, you know, and just simply do that across it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something that's...
Not too light. Don't lighten it all evenly all the way across, but try and get a bit of variation.
Just trying to get rid of that.
I would take that grey up a bit. That's it. That's softened it a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's better.
This concern that I have with actually feeling my own hand on the screen is something that I eventually found too much to bear, and I had to take over and begin to acquire at least sufficient skills to be able to make a few minimal marks, because my verbal directions were simply not getting through to another artist's hand. And it's at that point that I feel painting began to intrude into the technology. I felt that I was then making my own mark instead of having it made for me.
Spray work there. That's not so artificial.
It's much better. It's much, much better.
Shall we leave it at that?
It's curious that it's taking so much time to fulfill rather minor needs, apparently minor needs. The big dramatic ideas are established very quickly, and then it's a question of rather slow, laborious building up of textures and colour relationships.
Well, I mean, any minute now, I think we're coming to the moment of truth when
Whether we
when
take
shrink
it down,
things
down, shrink
again,
it down
because
to
once we
take a look at it.
There he is.
Very nice. So he is now fairly presentable and is more or less the kind of image that I envisaged. I mean, you have a dream when you start these things.
yeah.
You've got an idea in your head, and obviously you're not going to be able to imagine him in his total and final form early on, but this technique has enabled us to get to something very close to the dream. And now it would be nice to be able to put another panel beside him to make an equivalent of the citizen painting. I feel we want him walking
into the picture. Well,
into the problem.
Yeah, well, in that case,
Marching blithely into this disaster
Yeah.
area.
Okay, well, why
So
don't
let's
we...
have him as a left-hand panel too, and then give me a blank panel on the left.
Right, well, what we'll do is we'll cut him out. Right, so that isolates the picture, which we then cut out. We've got a slight mismatch there, but I think we can probably come back and do a bit of framing at the end of the, day. I think again, that's... Well, this is a photographic rendering of the original frame, so we can do anything about that at the end of the day, really. But it gives us a fairly clear idea of...
And now you can remove, I suppose,
Now
the
we
guy
can-
on the left.
Right, there we go.
I want to go to our library and see what we've got. There's a very nice night scene
What I've been looking for the left-hand panel was something which was almost as abstract as the marks on the big panel. This, I suppose, has that degree of abstraction because it's probably an infrared photography, a night scene during some disturbance in Northern Ireland.
Canvas. At what size?
But there should be more stuff on the bottom.
Well, that's what there is, I'm afraid.
That's all there is on
We
the
can
bottom.
recompose that.
I thought there was a bit more below. Oh, do you think that's too high? It looks a little odd. No, but yes, we've got to make it fit the perspective somehow. A bit further down. Okay, let's settle for that. Right, we've got him now then.
Well, what we can now do, I'll just do something, I don't know whether we might be able to, this may not work, but just to give you an idea, if we go back to the title again. What we could now do is magnify a bit of that, if you like. If I take the bottom right-hand corner, which is that a bit there?
Yes. The trouble is if you use something, again, that's in the image.
So we restore the, as far as we go.
To get that lightly, the shrink it. It's not bad, but we want to get a scale equivalence, don't we? The texture across.
We could overlay a little bit of this texture into that, if you like, to get a sort of correlation of.
It's pretty abstract.
It's quite fun. And we could now, if we stick that on one side again, we could go back to our chap with the sword and relieve him of a little bit of his robe. Ignore the, we can sort out the legs. You know. We'll take all the robe and get our hands on them.
Yeah, that's very good.
Well, now, very crudely then, without any sort of windows or soft edges at all, we've got that much. To keep that, it's rather nice, isn't it? It's
I suppose you just put a little bit of that whiteness.
well, what we could do.
Texture in the corner.
Yeah. Well, okay. So if we did our little window,
make a
then,
mask.
make our little mask. That'll allow some of that texture to sort of bleed across.
And I think
then we can
up the top, very slightly. That should
Yeah.
it.
Right, paste. Here we go. Yes,
That's good.
that's super.
And now we need the texture
Okay.
in the bottom here. We need to put something equivalent to that to get the scale of perspective.
Right.
Looking at the space between the two rows of white lines, there seems to be an unpleasant hole in the middle. It isn't a flat surface any longer. We've added a bit on the bottom and there isn't a very good join. So now we're trying to make an equivalence between the left and the right to give a kind of soft swathe all the way through up to the lights of the armoured vehicle.
It's the scale of the grain
Yeah.
that I think has to be
Yeah.
shifted.
Okay. Well, now we have to make a new cut. I think I'll go back and find the. We'll find this bloke again. That's the road there, isn't it?
One of the advantages of the Quantel box is that it provides possibilities of collaging with soft edges. It's something that I hadn't really conceived before I approached the actual use of the machine. To be able to spray around a mask in this way gives you something that it would be very difficult to do with a pair of scissors.
I'd like it to cover this less. I'd like that texture
Okay,
to be there
yeah.
and just sort of
Yep. That's easy. I
superimpose it
understand.
rather than
Yeah.
substitute it.
It's a matter of degree.
Yes. That's better.
That's much more like it.
I'm not worried about those now. I'm more worried about the angle of this not
Quite.
Following through. It's almost as though we want to take some dots and put them in up the top there, or draw some.
Or one could move the truck. I mean, it's six of one, half dozen the other, really.
Ah.
I mean, there's no reason why I shouldn't say, look, why don't we...
But what does that mean? Going over all that work again?
No, no, we'll just simply take this bit of orange or whatever it is.
I think that.
Paste. Well, we've now got this chap that we can place at sort of whatever size or angle.
Yeah.
We can even crank, if one wanted
Crank
to sort
it
of
up. That's
change the angle a bit.
Right. No, I don't need to change the angle.
You see what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
it becomes...
I would leave it where it is, but it was getting rather good with that slight change of position. It was higher up, wasn't it? Higher. So it seems to be wanting to come down the track a bit better now. You think that's
Yes, I
better?
quite like that.
Then I don't feel the same need to continue the...
No. Well, because
Paint up.
it does actually
It
now
works better
match
now,
precisely that
Yes.
perspective, doesn't it? The only
And
disturbing
now
element
what
now is this bit.
there's
isn't it?
that bit there, yes. But I suppose that's fairly easy to...
A matter of
make
moments,
those
there's no
masks
problem
and-
at all.
Shall we leave it at that? Being confronted with it for the first time, you begin to worry about the philosophic implications of it and what is it? Obviously, it's called a paint box. It's an extension of the artist's range of media, and it may have the kind of importance that photography had, that the influence of photography on Degas was the beginnings of a whole new episode in art history, which has still to run its course. And it may well be that this is the beginning, the first rumblings of the electronic impact upon the artist.
Excellent.
Oh, put that light back in very gently. I don't know if I've succeeded in this endeavor, but I would like to think that it was possible to present both of these strange circumstances in such a way that the source, the human source of this painting, retains its dignity. That's been on my mind all the time, that I wouldn't like to think that one had been mocking either the guy's daubing his cell with excrement, or this businessman walking through the streets with a King Billy sword and an assertion of his loyalty to the crown.